Number 34. Some components of cells are listed. Cytoplasm, nucleus, chloroplast, cell wall, cell membrane. Which of the components could be observed using a microscope in a prepared slide of leaf epidermal cells, but not in a prepared slide of human cheek cells? Alright, so we're talking about prepared slide, microscope, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What it's really asking is leaf, which is plant, versus human. So, what's in the leaf, but not in the human? Cytoplasm, that's in both. Nucleus, that's in both. Chloroplast, in the plant, not in the human. Cell wall, in the plant, not in the human. Cell membrane, in both. So, find it in plants, because it does photosynthesis. Find it in plants, because animal cells don't have it. But almost everything else does. Almost. And so 3 and 4, 3 and 4 only. Number 35. Niles Eldridge and Stephen J. Gould researched the lenses of the eyes of fossil trilobites of different species. In 1972, they published a paper in which they described the tendency of a species to remain the same until sudden change in the environment causes a new related species to appear. Which hypothesis was most challenged by the work of Eldred and Gould? Okay, so before I start reading the options, let's focus what we're talking about here. They're giving you a historical experience of some sort of a discovery, and this is what they said. The tendencia of a species to remain the same until a sudden change in the environment causes a new related species to appear. Okay, so when we're talking about evolution, okay, what they're describing here is called punctuated. All right, that punctuated equilibrium. So prior to this, so this is 1972, this isn't too long ago. Evolution, the concept of evolution has been around much longer than that. So, gradualism was the predominant concept, and then at first, and then they realized, well, every once in a while we have a slightly altered process called graduated punctualism. So, which hypothesis is most challenged by the work of Eldridge and Gould? Reddy's hypothesis that spontaneous generation does not occur. Haeckel's hypothesis that embryological development mimics the evolution of species. Wallace's hypothesis that geography affects the distribution of a species. Or Darwin's hypothesis that the development of a species is a slow, gradual process. So, that's definitely a challenging question, but we're going to compare and contrast this. A sudden change with a slow, gradual process. So, they're comparing these two. So, which hypothesis was most challenged? Which means this challenged it, this is opposing it. that this is a change, that this new concept, punctuated equilibrium, is in opposition to gradualism. They're different. Challenging question to understand what it's asking, but that's the correct answer. Number 36. Which part of a DNA molecule is responsible for the direct coding of specific traits in an organism? So, DNA molecule. Okay, so the nucleotide. Dun, dun, dun. The monomer for DNA. It's got the phosphate. It's got the sugar. It's got the nitrogen base. Okay, that's one. And then it's going to make a chain. We're going to now become a polymer. There's another phosphate, sugar, and base. And then it's going to do it again. Phosphate, sugar, base, and those are linked together, phosphate to sugar. And then the nitrogen base, that's your A, T, C, G, etc. All right. So, in all these parts of the DNA, what part is the direct coding of specific traits? So where is the actual information? So it's kind of like if you ask someone about a book. Is the information the paper? Is the information the cover? Or is the information the letters on the page? Well, the information's in the letters on the page. Just like with DNA, the information is in the letters. The A, T, C, G, the code. So, all right, the number of hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are what link the two strands together. So over here you'll have the T, over here you'll have the A, over here you'll have the G, and there's a whole nother strand over here. Those in the middle are the hydrogen bonds. The number of hydrogen bonds, how many hydrogen bonds, does not do the coding because all the hydrogen bonds are exactly the same. So that's not it. The number of carbons in the DNA molecule. So if I counted the carbons and I were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, da, da, da. The number of carbons, no. All right, the sequence of the nucleotide bases, the order in which the A, T, C, G, the sequence, the order in which those things occur, is definitely the correct answer. Sequence of the nucleotide bases. Now, here, just look at that, the sequence of phosphates along the DNA strand. So it's phosphate, phosphate, phosphate. There's no change in those. Those are all completely 100% identical phosphates. So that can't code for anything. Okay, so this is that question that tests your understanding of what the different parts of the molecule are. Number 37. 39% of you got this right, when more of you should have. So, when mammals get an infection, their internal body temperature often rises by 2 or 3 degrees. This is what we call getting a fever. Fever. 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. The body gets the energy it needs to react to an infection by okay. The question's a little awkward, so let's read our options. Increasing the rate of cellular division, decreasing the rate of glucose movement into the cell, increasing the rate of cellular respiration in mitochondria, decreasing the rate at which carbon dioxide is removed from the cell. Okay, now that I've read the options, I now understand what the question's trying to get at. So, this internal body temperature goes up. That requires energy to make that go up. So, the body gets the energy it needs to react to an infection. Okay? Where does that energy come from? And keyword, energy. So, when we're talking about cellular energy, which organelle is responsible for cellular energy? All right? Where does energy, cellular respiration in the mitochondria is all about energy. All right? Making ATP from glucose. All right. Number 38. Scientists use zebrafish to study human genetic diseases because zebrafish and humans share many of the same genetic diseases. Odd, but that's cool. Which statement statement describes why zebrafish experience similar genetic diseases as humans? So, fish, humans. We have similar genetic diseases between a zebrafish and a human. Why is that possible? Is it because they have an omnivorous diet similar to humans? Is it because they have a nucleotide sequence similar to humans? Is it because they go through embryonic stages similar to humans? Or is it because they produce gametes through a process that is similar to humans? So which of these is the reason why zebrafish experience similar genetic diseases? Well, genetic diseases. Nucleotide sequence has everything to do with genetics. So there's a similar sequence of nucleotides in humans in specific genes than the zebrafish have. And so we can study genetic diseases in those zebrafish because they have a similar genetic sequence. So even if you don't fully understand the question, understanding key phrases like genetic disease and nucleotide sequence, that lets you know that if nothing else, you could have made that connection. Right. Number 39. How do the circulatory system and immune system work together to respond to injury? All right. Circulatory system and immune system working together. Increased blood flow kills healthy cells, which prevents infections at the site of injury. Increased blood flow doesn't kill healthy cells. Okay? Increased blood flow removes infection. So increased blood flow removes infected cells from the body. Okay? That's a possibility. Increased blood flow carries white blood cells. Carries white blood cells to the site of injury. Okay. Increased blood flow allows for the increase of oxygen to the injury site. So So, which one of those pairs actually properly describes these two systems? So, increased blood flow. Those all perfectly describe the circulatory system. We're talking about blood flow. So, that is done. Now, the immune system. Does the immune system remove infected cells from the body? No, that's the excretory system. Excretory system removes things from the body, whatever it is. The excretory system does that. So that is not a good description. White blood cells is definitely immune system. Okay? Increase the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the site of the injury. That is the respiratory system. So that's not describing immune system. So, the best answer is C. Because we're describing these two systems working together to achieve something. Number 40, a student groups different types of cells as shown. Which table headings should the student use for the two groups? Okay, hopefully you're like, oh, it's so obvious, but so here we go. We look at this cell. We've got organelles in there. We've got a nucleus. Here we have a nucleus. Notice how similar they are. So those both have a nucleus. This has this large thing right here that's a central vacuole. This also has lots and lots of organelles in it. This one kind of has a little bit more of a box shape to it. This one doesn't. This one has a nice thick cell wall, no cell wall here. So here we are looking at a plant cell and an animal cell. Now you look over here. This one has lots of cilia on it and a flagella. This has a couple flagella on it. And if you look inside, the only thing you see in there is DNA. These are both unicellular organisms. Now that you can tell those are multicellular, but because they have the flagella, that means they're independently moving. They have no nucleus. We can see the DNA, but there's no nucleus. There's no visible organelles as well. So, when we're doing these two groups, plants and animals complex, we have lots of organelles. We have a nucleus. Okay? Comparing these groups. Is it animals versus plants? No. This is animal plant. We already decided that. Okay. Is it prokaryote, eukaryote? Yes, it is. Let's look at the other ones. Mobile and motile, that means the same thing. Motile means mobile. It's just different words for it. Okay? Fungal versus bacteria. Bacteria cells don't have nucleus. These are prokaryotic. And these are eukaryotic, which means they totally have switch. So, the answer right there. Prokaryotic, eukaryotic. There we go. Number 41. 24% of you got this right, and more should have. Anyways, Enchanted Rock State National Area. Okay, so this place located in Central Texas. Enchanted Rock is a dome of granite. So, big, huge, smooth, round rock. Dome. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, the area contains 4 easily identifiable communities. Remember, community. All the living things in an area. All right, this one has 4 different communities. The table describes the characteristics of each type of community in the area. Okay, so the type of community and the dominant characteristics. So the open oak woodland, oak, cacti, grasses, some boulders, mesquite grassland, mesquite trees, abundant grass, thick soil, few boulders, floodplain, thick mix of trees, shrubs, grass, numerous wildflowers, floods with heavy rains, granite rock, the barren rock with lichen patches. All right. Now to the question. A student studying primary successions should focus on which of these communities? All right. Primary succession. Primary succession. So we're talking about that ecological succession, how a ecosystem progresses from less complex to more complex. And it always, primary succession, compared to like secondary succession, starts with bare rock. And right here we have barren rock. And lichens is your first pioneer species that will appear on bare rock because it can grow on bare rock. So that is definitely your answer. Granite rock. Number 42, the relationships among different orders of millipedes are shown in the cladogram. So, remember about cladograms. This is demonstrating evolutionary relationships. The more branches between two species, the more different they are. The fewer branches between them, the more closely related they are. Based on this cladogram, which statement best describes the relationship among millipede orders? Okay. So, here we go. Stimulidea is more closely related to Merochetta. Wow. Okay, so here we go. Stimulidea, Merochetta. They only have that one branch separating them. Pensillata and Meronchetta. All right, Pensillata over here, Meronchetta key right here. All right, so here between these two, there's just one branch. Whereas between these, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 branches between this and that. So I would definitely agree with that statement. But let's read the others just to make sure. Okay. Spirostrepetida is more closely to Glomerida, whatever, than this Phattopteria, than this one, and this one. These two only have one branch separating them, so they would be more closely related. So it's not G. Polyzoida. All right, so this one and this one more closely related than this one and this one. So if I follow this back, there's only one branch separating these two, but this has 1, 2, 3 branches separating them. So that's not the answer. It's the opposite. All right. Now let's go to this one and this one. It's asking that these two are more closely related. They're actually pretty separated. Comparing these two, which are really quite close. So the answer for this one, if you know how to read a cladogram, oh gosh. Sorry, I wasn't showing that. So as you go through all these options and you do these comparisons, you find that there are lots of branches between these pairs, the first pair, and less branches between the second pair. So to be more closely related, has fewer branches in the cladogram. And to be less closely related, it would have more branches. So just being able to read that, your answer is definitely F. Okay, this diagram, okay, so this type of question has been removed for all students who are taking the test for the first time, starting in fall of 2018. You only need this if you are a retester as of fall 2018. So if the fall of 2018 is your first time taking this test, skip this question, which is the majority of you. Okay. 2 biomolecules, carbon, 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 oxygen and hydroxide, OH, off of those. And this, we have a phosphate carbon ring with a U, linked to a phosphate with a carbon ring and an A, phosphate carbon ring and a G, phosphate carbon ring and an A. This is a sugar, so phosphate sugar base, phosphate sugar base, phosphate sugar base, phosphate sugar base. Okay, now, the whole idea of having a phosphate, sugar, and then the base, and then repeating that, this is nucleic acid. Okay, this is like, well, it has the U in it, so this is RNA rather than DNA, but it's a nucleic acid. So AGAU, it's RNA. Over here, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, that's it. Okay? So this either has to be a carbohydrate or lipid. Now, if you notice, the number of oxygen for every carbon, there's an oxygen. For every carbon, there's an oxygen. For every carbon, there's an oxygen. That tells us that it's a carbohydrate, not a lipid. So we've got a carbohydrate and a nucleic acid. Which of the following best describes these biomolecules? Both carbohydrates? No. X is a nucleic acid? No. X is not a nucleic acid. X and Y are both nucleic acids? No, they're not. X is a carbohydrate. Y is nucleic acid. Absolutely.